All right, I'm Jamie with Cruisingtheland, and here we got a 200 and an 80 series. And I've had a lot of people ask me, compare those two, because I have a lot of videos comparing an 80 to a 100 and to a 60, you know, the generations before and after it. I have a 200 compared to an LX 470 and compared to a 100 series as well, or 470 series. But in this video is the first time we're going to compare a 200 to an 80, because a lot of people who are getting into overlanding are trying to decide between the two. And I know these cars through and through, so let me help you, give you my advice, my experiences, and help you make your decision. And if you like this video, please like and share. I spent a buttload of time this morning detailing these two cars so they look good in the Southern California sun. So hit that like, hit subscribe even if you like Landcruisers. I'm all Landcruisers on this channel, and let's get to it. Okay, so two of the most coveted Landcruisers that they make. The 200, which gives you modern technology, V8, and the 80 series here, which gives you robust reliability. Well, they're both reliable, who's kidding who, but just phenomenal overland vehicle. And I've had these cars throughout my life. In 1995, I had my very first FZJ80, and that's when I fell in love with Landcruisers. But this is a viable choice. And I've had so many people that looked at my, 80 versus a 60, 80 versus a 100 video. I'm like, can you compare it to a 200? So here we are. I got two in front of me, both white. You can tell that the 200 series, that white is kind of like a crystal white. It's a little brighter, and on the 80 series is a little bit more creamier, but they're both Landcruiser white. And one thing is, these whites are phenomenal, because if you ever find a 200, which is like 2015 and lower to 2008, or an 80 series in white, and it's oxidized, don't worry. It doesn't need a paint job. It just needs a good detailing, and you can bring that vehicle back to showroom shine. So, one person I was talking to recently, and I have a podcast, so we talk about this type of stuff. If you ever want to join the podcast, details are in the description. All Landcruisers all the time on that podcast. But they're like, man, I just don't know what to do. So if you're going to be overlanding, camping, you want to get the family off just a general fire road, you want to get a little bit into some dirt and climb some hills, either one of these is going to be sufficient for you. Either one. Now, in the back, solid full axle in the 80 series. So that's what's going to give you your flex, right? Where you can go over some major stuff. That flexes out. On the 80 series, the 200 series, as you can see, same thing. So you have a diff, solid axle. So these both have solid axles in the back. The big difference is the front. And this is what's going to be your rock crawling. If you're going to rock crawl, you want to definitely go 80 series. So check this out. Solid axle in the front. That's what the last of the solid axles for the Landcruiser US market. There was a 105, which is, the 100 series, came after the 80, which did have a solid front axle in some of the markets, not the US. So if you are going to rock crawl, you could stop right here and decide this is going to be your vehicle. Because of that flex, because of the solid axles, you get tons of flex. Yes, the 200 series here comes with the KDSS, which kind of disables or disconnects, I should say, the sway bar when you're going to be on moguls, and it does it automatically, and that gives you a little bit more droop and tucking in the front and rear tires. So KDSS, compared to the LX 570, does not have KDSS. So if you are looking at a 200 or a 570 and you're going to overland, you're going to have better luck in the 200 series if you get a little bit more aggressive. And another reason on the 80 series why it's going to be your better rock crawler, not only those front and rear axles, front and rear diff locks. Now, it didn't come on all 80 series, so you really got to look at the details and look for this dial. I'll show you here in a second. But Electronic lockers, meaning, you know, your wheels are all going to turn independently. Center locker, which all Land Cruisers have, is just going to make the distribution of power 50-50 from front to back. The front lock spreads that out. See that dial right there? That's the magic dial that you want if you are getting an 80. You can always add aftermarket lockers as you can on a 200 series, but again, the 200 series, you're not going to get that flex. So rock crawlers and overlanding, 80 is your way to go. Just overlanding and you want power, 200. Now, another distinct difference between these two vehicles, despite their age difference, is the power plant. So the 80 series has a 4.5 inline 6 producing 212 horsepower. Plenty of power. It's going to give you everything you need off-road, of course, but when you're loading this thing down and you're putting all your gear on top and you're going to put a rear tire carrier and you're weighing it down, well, it's going to be slower than the 200 series. Not only that, but you know, when you're going up a hill, even if you're not loaded, it struggles a little bit more. So if you're in the mountains of Colorado, an 80 series is going to be a little slower, especially when you put bigger tires. When you go 33, 35s, which you want to start thinking of re-gearing if you're not at sea level, and 37s, and the rare person that puts 40s, yeah, it's going to be slow going uphill. That 5.7, well, this is 383 horsepower. It is not needing any more horsepower. This thing is just super powerful, super torquey. So you're never going to have problems going uphill. So if you live in Colorado, you're just going to overland, 200 series is your way to go. Now, as we discuss these, don't forget, there's one truck right in the middle of these two. It's the 100 series. I know, you're all thinking it. So let's just put that one away for right now while we're talking about these two. A 100 series is going to fit right between these two, right? Because now you have a V8, not the 5.7, but a 4.7, which is pretty powerful. Slightly more powerful than the 80 series was at 212. The first 100 series was 230 horsepower. In 2003 to 2005, they got it up to 235 horsepower, which is a minor tweak, and 2006, 2007 on the 100 series is 275 horsepower with their VVTi. So the 100 series is going to be your little in between these two, where you're going to have the creature comforts and technology, and you're going to have your overland ability, and you're not going to struggle as much as an 80 series going up the hills. But when it comes to rock crawling, the 80 series still will outdo a 100 all day long. And I would overland a 100 series. I would not rock crawl a 100 series. Only extreme people with major modifications are going to do that. But then you always risk breaking lower upper control arms in the front is pretty common. So the 80 series is going to be your most robust. And that 5.7, you know, even though that's a 5.7 V8 and this is an inline 6, believe it or not, you're going to get the same MPGs out of either one. So you're going to be visiting the gas station just as often, maybe more in the 80 series with that inline 6 if you're weighing it down and you got all this overland gear. Then the other thing is tire size. I got 33s on the 200 with no lift in the back, but I did put a spacer. I call it my poor man lift. I have a video of that. I'll put it in my descriptions. So it's just a little spacer to bring the front end up and even it out a bit, because otherwise they sit a little lower, and I call it the stink bug, or people call it the stink bug. So by putting that spacer here, it lifts it up. Inexpensive, well, relatively easy to do that. KDSS, you got to disconnect when you do that, that mod. For the 80 series, you can put 33s all day long, OEM, without a lift. And then you can put 35s. You do a 2-inch, 3-inch, 4-inch lift. There's just so much aftermarket support for an 80 series that the 200 series doesn't have. Now, one major thing, these two vehicles, another reason why I thought of posting this video, they're coming up for sale. And some of you are thinking like, well, 200 series is a lot more expensive. Well, it isn't. This one here is a 2008, and it wasn't until 2016 that they changed the, did like a facelift in the front. They changed the transmission to an 8-speed instead of a 6-speed, which actually slowed it down slightly. But everything else is relatively the same power plant, same, you know, doors and same frame and all that, just transmission change and front and rear lights and dashboard. Little couple modern amenities added to it, but not that much. So 2016 and up are, you know, going to be in your $50,000, $60,000, $70,000 range. A 2008, this one right here, I'm selling. It's mine. It's been my truck for a few years now. I'm selling for $32,900. This Landcruiser, I'm selling for $32,900. So here you are looking at two vehicles, vastly different, both Landcruisers, but the same price. Now, I think $32,900 is about as low as it gets on a 200 series. So if you're looking for something cheaper, you can go to an LX 570. I am selling my wife's, and it's about $10,000 less. Landcruiser just seems to hold value more. It's the badge, it's the name. Even though an LX is coming out of Japan, same engine, same frame, has you know, the automatic height control, not KDSS, and sold for more when brand new. But the Landcruisers now sell for more than an LX 570. Then the 80 series here, yes, of course, you can find some for 10 grand that are a little bit rusted. And think about it, the age difference between these two is 13 years. So the Landcruiser, the 200 series, is what, coming up on, it's a 2008, so it's 15 years old, right? So think of your 15-year-old self. Yeah, you don't have as many scars and issues. You know, you're young, right? And then compared to your 28-year-old self, because that's how old the 80 is right now, you got more experience, more scars, more mileage on the body. So the 80 series are coming up in value, and some of them are more than the one we're looking at here. They could be 40, 50. I've got two down the street, which I'll show at the end of the video, that I wouldn't take anything south of 60,000, but it's because it's got a lot of mods on it. You know, rear bumpers, when you add it to an 80, that alone is going to be easily $4 or $5 grand. So you can see, as you modify, you put drawers, you know, a shelf system, that's going to cost you $1,500 to $3 grand. You put a fridge, you put all this gear, price goes up. And especially, I mean, think about this too. I think the Landcruisers of these years, 80s and 200s, they've kind of hit rock bottom price-wise, so they're going to hold and go up. And they made a lot more 80s. They're making about 11,000 on average per year from, I'm going to say from 93 and up. 91, 92, avoid them. They have the 62 series engine carryover, the 3FE, and I've never heard anybody say, I love my 3FE engine. They just have issues, overheating problems, things like that. So I would steer clear of a 91, 92. So 93 to 97 is the way to go on an 80, and 95 to 97 has updated dash and has airbags. So a couple changes and upgrades on those final 3 years, 95, 96, 97. Now the 200 series, again, you can get a 2016 and pay double, almost double, than you would for this one. And yeah, some of you might have already pointed out, how come he's got a heritage badge? I just did it for fun. So they sell the heritage badge, it's $500. But I'm like, wait a minute, the heritage badge is from the FJ40. That's why it's the heritage. I've got FJ40 badges, and those cost $40. They just have little nibs on the back end that go into the panel on a 40 series. So you just Dremel or shave those off, and voila, put some 3M tape, and I've got a bargain brand Toyota Heritage here. So, and yeah, those are Rock Warrior wheels. I love these. These are powder coated in Yankee gold with a black beadlock rim. Those are fake beadlocks, but still pretty cool. So let's then take a look at the insides of these two. We'll start with the 80 series. And of course, you're going to notice a little bit of dating, right? I mean, think about it. This was 1995. The Toyota Camry shared parts in here. But when it comes to interior, you care about this button. I still like it. I love classics. And of course, you're getting your modern amenities when you add a double din. It's got CB. And as far as space in the back, there's going to be another difference with a 200. You can remove the seats of both of these. It's just a hell of a lot easier with a, well, a 100 series actually is the easiest. This one you have to unbolt, and same thing, you have to unbolt in the 200 series. But they both fold up for convenience. It eats up a bit of your trunk space, so if you're going to overland, likely that's going to be one of your first mods, is removing those seats, unless you're bringing a whole bunch of people with you. Both have tailgates. Now this is just a, you know, keystone marker for a Landcruiser. It's awesome. You can sit on there when you're putting on your ski gear, your hiking boots. You put your kids up there. You can eat off of it when you're on the trail because it's right at hip height. Super convenient. Love it. Way better than a swing out or a just, you know, one big hatch. So let's go to the back of the 200. Voila. So you can see I've got the seats in here. Be a little bit more of a task to remove them, but they can be removed. Again, in the 100 series, they just have little clips, so you can just like a quick release, and you can take them in and out so quickly. These, it's a little bit of a job. But again, you get your, sorry, I did an oil change. I forgot to take my mobile one out of there. So you got the tailgate here. They have little storage spots, so they finally made use of that. If you want to do that on an 80 series, contact me. I've got a great company called Rugged Bound, where you can put a, obviously you got a cut, and then you can put a little storage area back there. But effectively, the design is the same, just a 200 is going to be slightly bigger on the inside. Both of them, second row folds up, so it's fold and then fold again. Works the same way on both of them. They kept that design, obviously. And then the interior. A little bit more modern, right? And then the 2016 gets a lot more modern than this. But, I mean, Bluetooth, but you got everything you really need. I don't need lane detection. I don't need radar cruise control. I'm fine just being the driver. So it's just a great value at 200 series at this point. Now they made, I was talking about how many they made, right? So the 80, you know, kind of the peak years, they're making 15,000 plus the LX 450 in 96 and 97. So there was tons of these on the market. Now, being a little older, yeah, maybe some of them being up in the Rust Belt rusted out. Maybe some of them got into an accident. They're off the streets. When it came to the 200 series, especially in the latter years, they were only making about 3,000 a year. So if you think about supply and demand, you are looking at less 200s on the market than 80s as just fact. So maybe that will affect prices here in the years to come. Now, what else? I'm just, because I know these cars, I'll be honest, I didn't prep for this video. I'm just spewing out all my knowledge that I know about these. Okay, again, we were talking aftermarket gear. There's more and more coming out for the 200 series. You know, like Slee makes rear bumpers, which I love their bumpers, for the 80 and the 200 and the 100. You got ARB, Victory 4x4. You have AO here locally. If you want to get them, talk to me. I'm like 10 minutes from their shop. Help coordinate that. So lots of aftermarket support for both. Obviously a lot more for the 80. It's just been around a lot longer. And, you know, the Australians love them. So they really spearheaded a lot of that aftermarket parts and support. You could always make your 80 series faster with a supercharger. I don't recommend it because obviously it's going to tax the motor. Both of these have timing chains. When the 100, the year between these two, had a timing belt that you have to be concerned with and make sure you change it every 90,000 miles. But you know, when you look at inflation and all, the 80 series might be slightly more expensive when they made it than the 200. In the mid 90s in Japan, I mean, they were just putting everything out there, no expense spared on these 80s. That's why they're so robust and such high demand even today, especially people that now know this is not a soccer mom truck anymore. This is an off-road overlander. So if you really equate and look at time and inflation from 1995, this is like $110,000 in today's terms, versus 200s were, well, at the time, this one was in the 70,000 range in 2008. So fast forward to today, maybe 90,000 range, 100,000 range, and a lot of technology. But man, this one paved the way. It's got a lot of mechanical technology, if you know what I mean. So there you have it. You really got to ask yourself, what are you going to do? Are you going to go up hills and not mind every once in a while that you're going to be a little slower than an 80? The 200s go in the flow of traffic all the time, 80 miles an hour. Both of them will go 80 miles an hour, on flat land. Just the 200 will do it slightly lower RPMs. There's a lot more power, 383 compared to 212, big difference. But you are just, if you're out there in the wilderness off-roading, or let's say overlanding in a 200, and then you see this little offshoot that you can go up these rocks, you're gonna have to think twice about it. The 80 series is gonna take that left turn and go up those rocks just because they can and they want to, and it's fun as hell. So the 80 series will be able to pull it off. So again, both of these are for sale. Hit me up if you are interested. $32,900, which I think are both two fair prices. Let's talk miles, right? Because obviously miles make a difference on price when comparing. So both of these are both over 200,000. This one's 207,000. This one has 260 on the odometer, but it had a new engine put in at 240 range, like at 245,000. Has an 85,000 mile 1FZ FE engine. So phenomenal. Previous owner did it, drove it for 15,000 miles. So anything that would have issues have been worked out, which was just plug and play, no issues. So technically it's a 100,000 mile motor now, with those extra 15 put on by the previous owner, and 260 on the body. The other thing to consider when looking at any vehicle, let alone Land Cruisers, is where was it born and raised, right? Well, all Land Cruisers are born in Japan, but they're quickly sent out for adoption to the US. So I call it born in the US. But if it's in California, New Mexico, Arizona its whole life, it's not going to see rust, right? If it's in Chicago, New York, it's going to see salted roads. So those are things to consider, and those also affect value. If there's anything I didn't touch upon, hit me up in the comments below. I do answer all comments within 24 hours. Also, you can hit me up on Instagram. I'm at Landcruiser949. And if you're interested in either of these vehicles, you can hit me up on that as well. Oh, side note. So I like so much these Yankee Golds. I found these. Someone else powder coated, did all this. I liked them so much that guess what? Yankee Gold on the 80. It's just too cool looking. So I like that whenever I refinish. And I did that little, 3-stripe Toyota look. I might add that to this. That could be cool. We'll see. It's just a little longer. I think I just have to do it to this line right here, 3 stripes. But again, white is beautiful. I'll have in my description below the videos I talked about. So an 80 comparing to a 60 and a 100, a 200 comparing to a 100, a 470 and a 570. So if you're really honing in on a specific, you can check out the details on my videos there. Yeah, so comparison videos, and then I have a video on how to bring back that white. All that's on my channel, so definitely, if you're looking at Land Cruisers or Lexus, subscribe. That's what my channel is all about, guys. What are you waiting for? And I'd really appreciate it if you like it, because when you like it, then YouTube recognizes that and puts it a little bit better in the algorithm. So let's help share Landcruiser love, and I really appreciate if you like that. And I hope this video served you well, helped you in your decision, inspired you to get your Landcruiser, because guys, these trucks are going to be here for decades to come because they're built to last. Built in Japan, they will outlast any of their competitors that were in their SUV, wagon, if you will, categories throughout the years. I love mine. You're probably wondering, why would you let this go, either one of these? Well, my wife has an LX 570, which I might put up for sale, and I've got 2 other 80s, and I got a 60, a 73, a 40. I got lots of Landcruisers, so I got 3 80s. That's why this one's gonna go. Otherwise, I'd keep it because this thing drives phenomenal. All right, well, thanks for tuning in. Of course, as I mentioned at the end of this video, I'll share those couple Landcruisers I have parked down the street here in a second. All right, so here's Otis, one of my 80 series. It is, I guess, my keeper, if you will. I just have had this longer, and I've just over time have done all the mods and build outs, which is what a lot of people do, right? They start off by, you know, acquiring their Landcruiser, and as each year goes by, you add more and more and more to it. If you're ever looking for action tracks, I do sell these with the yellow zinc metal. They're awesome in so many different colors. Just hit me up. But that's Otis right there. And then here's my other 80, which is an 81. This is JDM, a diesel. So it's just a totally different experience when you drive this. It's right-hand drive, as you can tell, and just a different experience. What can I say? It's diesel. It's less horsepower than the inline 6, but this is a 24 valve diesel. It's all about the torque. So this one's a blast. This one's called Black Mamba, I should say. If you follow my Instagram and YouTube, I've got a whole build out 4-part video of how I built this one out. But yeah, this one's a total blast. So those are my 80s. Again, you'll see these on my channel if you subscribe. So thanks for watching. Happy trails and good luck finding your 80 or 200 series.